Chris, you want to start us off?
Yes, Mayor. So last item 10, council FY 23-24 prioritization discussion. And I think we always try to end these retreats with some discussion, dialogue to try to give, for you all to try to give me as much guidance and direction, some of which obviously I've been noting throughout the retreat. And but if there's any clear common themes or what you all see as priorities from your perspective as council, I'm here to receive that. And so we have some idea moving forward with the budget process coming up. That's what those things that have some budgetary implications.
Yeah. So you
Particular.
want to go around the room and just, each.
Why don't maybe we should go by topic.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, that's fine too.
And as we think through that, in my mind, what are the need, to get back to Jerry's point, what are the must-haves? Right? What are the nice-to-haves? Or what are the must-haves and then
What are the needs and then what are the
not, the nice-to-have,
wish lists?
right?
Right.
So like in the case of public utilities, JP's area there, the wastewater treatment plant expansion, there's a legal requirement there. Now, it appears based on recent usage levels that we've got a little time,
Yes.
right? So it's not quite that urgent, but
But we're also want to help or take advantage of obvious money infrastructure money.
yeah, we need to,
Shovel ready.
yep. Perfect. So to me, the wastewater treatment plant continued is
That's
a priority in JP's area, right?
Right.
Yeah, and we agreed, or you all agreed, that we continue to move forward to the extent that at the March meeting, we will have a budget amendment to do the phase 2 of the design to keep that process going.
Yeah.
All right.
Can we put a little side category when you're doing your list? Because I think that's one of those ones with that is a getting a synopsis together for Greenberg.
Yes.
And so that's synopsis with probable price tag.
If I
So
understand you, Mayor, I think I had written down, get feedback from Monica on what she's learned and how she and Team GT can be more supportive with potential tangible results on a list of things that we've discussed
Right.
or, okay.
Yeah. And I think I have a handful.
they're going to be a
of those.
bullet. If we go by bullets, then we can.
But they'll come up.
They'll come up. Mhm.
Okay, great.
So the lift station, that's already budgeted going forward, right? I mean, that's a planned,
The lift station.
Lift station,
upgrade-
yep, I mean,
upgrades, yeah, that's
that's a
being
known.
Right.
And so the other thing I heard was maybe looking at that centrifuge. I think we ought to look at that.
Give me my budget coming up.
And we're kind of saying, yeah, we want that in your budget coming up.
Roll back, kind of go with it.
Yeah.
Which ones are
The lift stations, their budget is year 1 and 2.
Right.
We're starting the work on year 1 right now because of the supply chain issue.
Yep.
And year 2, we're probably going to be a year behind.
got it?
But you still want it,
We're budgeted for year 1 and year 2.
but you want it, we should go ahead and budget for year
We're
3.
going to budget for year 3.
Yeah, okay,
It was a 5-year plan altogether.
right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, but I think in conversations with Monica last night, she was like, give me all those, so anything related almost to JP's work, we should be, breaking it out for her.
so basically, JP, everything you presented, you're planning to more or less show us in your budget. So his is not a wish list. His is not, well, some of it might.
Yeah, so,
like
yeah.
fence.
Yeah, some of it,
But, you
Some
know,
of it could be argued, could be,
well,
you know,
the fence, for example.
the haves.
Yeah.
It would be an improvement, but the question is, you know, there's must haves, gotta budget for those.
Yeah.
And then there's, you know, he's got a great list. It's a laundry list of,
Right, but I don't think there
Right.
should be any that are just, that would be sweet, you know.
Mhm, yeah.
I mean, we want to continue the 5-year paving plan. We want to, you know,
Well, he's gonna bring us all of this stuff,
Right.
basically.
that's right.
Right,
We don't even have to say, bring us this, because he's gonna do it.
right.
So is there anything we need to do with shoreline management? Make-
At shoreline management. Well, for Public Works is covered. I had that number one.
Yeah, that's covered.
That's covered.
So, okay.
But I had, so shoreline management, because there's some questions there about what you do with the shoals area.
Right.
Tubes, no tubes, sand, no sand, bring it in from frying pan, bring it in from. So I had that as number one, and so that we don't give away too much dirt. I had the comprehensive long-range planning of the islands, a very close number two.
Going to the shoreline, I think I do need to get with Eric as soon as possible,
Yeah,
like next week, as it relates to the
Frank
plan.
Financial. Well, the plan in general, so my impression from Eric's presentation is that Frank Pancho's is gonna be a really tough nut to crack, but if we could get it, it would be great. And right now, what he sees as a possibility, if there's any, is to reduce the scope and bring it down to trying to, and I think that
And I think
You know,
he said
and-
he'd start a conversation about it.
yeah, I'd like to direct him to just go ahead and start trying to see if he can get at least the 500 as an attitude.
And if it's a.
Could the
if it's
Greenberg firm
a-
help with some of the?
Oh, that's, she said, Monica said she was going to be talking to Eric. So I think, again, it's any studies or changes that he would have to make. We should at least have that on our list to them. Whether they can find funding to support.
The Conservancy mentioned the turtles in the beach, so that would be
Yeah.
a good part of it.
As part of the storyline, it was the, public beaches, nature.
But the strategy is, remember, going from 2 million square feet to 500,000 square feet. It's the precedent, it's not the size. So he isn't sure that have anything to do with it. So even if the fisheries people said, okay. If they said no, and we're too late to put the application in to run it from Jaybird all the way out to Shoals, it's too late. So we got to think about what can we do in parallel so that when we get the bad news happens, we're not stuck with doing zero.
So we'll keep pursuit on Frying Pan Shoal, keep pursuing Jaybird Shoal. But the other question is, in terms of placement, we're gonna do the part, the west side. Bypass the middle and do
Yeah,
the east.
I think that's
side.
what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
to
gonna
look at that.
Right.
Yep.
Move forward with design. And where we get the sand from will be a continued work.
Right.
I mean, it's details, all of these. I don't know how far you want to go, strategy detail, but big picture, I thought that was number one. And the other big picture, not talking about the details, is the long range planning thing, to plan out what the island's gonna look like.
So Chris is looking for budgetary implications there. So
Yes, and what I see there is funding that would need to be budgeted to do the UDO.
Right.
And are there other? We know that UDO is the priority. But then, do you want to look at the transportation master plan?
I think
Yes.
I think we
I
do.
think so.
I think so too.
I think I remember when we talked about this, so council meetings ago, we said it would naturally occur after the upfront study was done and fall into the next budget season. And I think that we're there now.
And he gave you a rough idea price.
Did.
Okay.
So we already have some budget numbers from.
Right. But we need to talk scope. What he thinks might be transportation study might not, like Emily said yesterday, is he including trolleys in his transportation study? So the scope needs to be part of the review as well, so.
I mean, it's kind of like this master plan. It is a big picture. It doesn't mean all of it's going to happen the way it did, or we're going to fund all the way we did. But I think we need to look at a big picture of how to move people in this island and what to do and how that helps with parking and everything else.
Yeah, and I think that, but I think at this stage, what we're looking is the funding to do the study.
That's what I'm saying.
To not as creating a solution.
No, that's what I'm saying, but we want to fund that study, we want that study,
Include.
the scope to be
Right,
part of
right,
that study.
Got it.
Yeah. Not doing anything because we don't even know what we should
Right.
do.
All right. One thing I was gonna ask y'all is Village Hall construction project. We're introducing another employee into Village Hall. You all have been in there and have seen, we're in the midst though of trying to work on some improvements inside the main big room that we could, it'd be an interim, but to the point that I think we need to go back to Chip and have a revisit on the design. That gives us gives us another opportunity to be sure,
Right.
But this building was designed for build out, but as Alan's saying, now we want to look for a building to put something in it.
Right,
Mhm.
I don't,
I know.
Village
Yeah.
Hall, I want to make sure
To me, I mean, my look at that and I don't read plans well, was that it just wasn't enough office space in there.
So does that have the room?
I mean, I could be
Same
wrong.
thing with the post office, right? You guys didn't have to tell the town, we're gonna build a whole new post office. They get the edge of the land and you expanded it. Is there any expansion capability for the Village Hall as well too?
Going back, before we bought the land beside Village Hall that the developer owned, we did a design because we were constrained, landlocked to the parcel we're on, and we did an expansion out to the rear. We couldn't go up a second floor.
Right.
Went out the rear, you've seen it, Mayor. But then after that, 07 design, we bought the land for the purpose of doing a new Village Hall. And we've gone through full design and construction. We bid that out. The time we bid it out, it came in, low bid was like almost 4 million.
It
Yeah, I
was
mean,
ridiculous.
They were stupid bids.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and
Nice.
So I remember the bid, that's why I asked, is there a middle road of doing an expansion like we did on the post office?
yeah, I mean,
I think that was one of the studies that Chip did years ago, just an
yes,
expansion of the existing building. The one thing that, I think there's two stories really that we have right now. There's, these guys are on top of each other and they need repair in general. So I think there's a stopgap remedy that, Judy did some design on the building and came up with, some suggestions of how we could handle it. And I think that would be a really minor cost to do
Yes.
that work.
right.
And then
That would be
there-
maybe what he's referring to, although it's not a physical expansion, it's an interior expansion.
No, I think of a physical expansion and not just for what we need now. I mean, a physical expansion, that's not saying I'm building a whole new hall. So you can have physical expansion to handle 25% more people than what you have today. And that will still go down a lot easier than saying we need a new Village Hall, probably 50% more people. And it still goes down easier than saying we need a new hall.
Well, but I think we need a new hall. I mean, I think that's the other part of it is that if we're moving towards build out, whatever that is, and people say we're not being prepared, I mean, I think we're gonna be throwing money. We're gonna throw money away for limited benefit. If we can't go 2 stories, we can only go build out so much. So we're gonna do all that. And trust me, then they're gonna find stuff that needs to be repaired in the one that is there, because it's old. And I think we're gonna be putting money away and still not hitting our goal.
Where would the new building go if it was? Suppose it drops from 4 million to 3 million or 2 million.
Yeah. It goes right, it's.
It goes right next
next
to
door. It's across from BHA.
And then you would just, and then just get rid of the old building.
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother question. So when
Repurpose.
We're gonna repurpose that old.
Well, repurpose, or you look at, so the new village hall it has a big conference room in it, has.
Yep.
So to relook at it with Chip and say, what if we took this out of the program and we have this building? So conference spaces, that kind of thing. Put them in the old building, dump space, rip out a couple of walls, we got a big open meeting hall or whatever. And then just reclaim some of the space, not redesign the whole building, but can that conference room all of a sudden become 2 offices? But take a look at renovation of a building that hasn't been built. Look at how we can do it that way.
Yeah, if I understand you right, and this makes perfect sense. You're saying the extension that I'm bringing actually start to be, so we'll get into your situation, the long-term permanent building and do it 50% of what you need now, in a couple other years, just totally redo from scratch the existing building, so that the whole thing ends up being new, but you do it in pieces.
I'm not sure I followed that.
But my thinking would be you build the new building, not necessarily for build out, but build it such that you could add another pod or 2 for build out to it. It's designed so that you can extend here or there as the island grows. And then repurpose the old village hall to Peter's suggestion, make that the conference room or something. If we're gonna get into commercial ARC kind of stuff, and I can see part of Stephen's group and perhaps utilizing that part of the town hall complex, that annex building,
Right.
I mean, it's all kinds of.
Yeah, I mean, so you'd have to ask Chip though, or Peter, under the current design of that potential new building, is it amenable as it is to expansion or not? Because then we have to think, are we getting into a whole new design process that we've already paid for once, right?
Yeah, and I don't know whether
Yeah.
that's, the one is, I think is, so go back to needs and wants, and so the need, absolute need right now is upgrade the existing village hall so we can accommodate another person.
Right.
And just give ourselves a nicer building.
Yeah.
And then the, want is to look at the new building and make sure that it isn't landlocked, can expand, and whether there's way to connect to the old building or add pods to it or whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
And then I think I don't know whether, I think that's want and,
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with that, because you do it in stages.
right.
I mean, Scott said it better. I was thinking the old building be down the road, one of those pods.
Well, I
But
think
the
so too.
idea, the idea of making pods.
Yeah.
Something that you would add to.
Yeah.
One of them is the old
Yeah.
building, and you got that and redo it, but that's a good way to do it.
Well, I'm gonna, there's some funds in there to have Chip revisit.
I mean, we have to remember whenever we decide, if and when we decide to pull the trigger on this thing, it's gonna take a while.
To get it done, certainly, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking, let's plan, my thinking is.
Okay, yeah, Zach's just reminding we have funds in the existing capital fund project for the village hall.
Okay.
Okay,
But my thinking is that hopefully we can get some redesign work done that we can all wrap our heads around. And then we move forward with this in the next budget cycle. I mean, I don't think we can get it done in time.
yes,
So it will be another year.
I'm afraid so. Chris.
I think so too. I think,
Yeah.
That's,
I mean,
that's,
I
we can
still
get it
we
right.
Get something out of the minor upgrade.
Right.
Right.
The existing,
right.
yep.
Yeah.
but just so, recognizing previous councils and you all will still continue to think about the existing village hall and what could be some potential uses, i.e. a satellite space for the conservancy at the west end of the island, a
bathroom.
welcome center, bathrooms.
Yeah.
That's always been, all those things have been discussed before.
Yes, I am.
You are.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's part of, to me, when I said number two, close seconds, the comprehensive plan that we heard those guys talk about, that would all be subsets. You're not gonna do all that stuff at once, right? So item six, what we heard yesterday, whether you do the bathrooms first or whatever, it's gonna be piecemeal over 20 years as we grow. So I put that in that bucket, number six.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
think
what I was saying was a close second.
when we're looking at, discussing the old village hall, we're gonna have program needs that we don't even know about. And when we're talking about even when we get to the CRM programming, there's another person. Oh, where are they going?
Right,
We're already in trouble with trying to find somebody for the finance. So
Right.
I think, we should be looking at anything like the old village hall is not trying to define exactly what it is, because by the time we get the new one built and everything, we're gonna have 3 people looking for a place to sit that we didn't know about or we didn't even think about.
Yeah, well, if you have a good architect that's gonna walk through and do the programming piece with all of us, right? Then he's gonna find out, she's gonna find out. Maybe I should do it for 5 or 10. But
Right.
by the time we're done, that's what we're gonna need.
Right.
But that's the programming step with the interviews, right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, I'll look at Chip's plan, but
I mean, there is a plan out there.
I mean, there's a final plan
Yeah.
all drawn up and ready to go, but I'm curious how well it lends itself to, bumping and attaching and
Because Mayor,
anything we do.
we got an approved stormwater permit for that design.
We did.
That wasn't an easy task. but-
Right,
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'd say in theory, had those prices not been inflated, we would have probably
We'd be under-
ordered the bid, we'd have
we'd
that.
be working on, it'd be
Yeah.
working, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think you could probably look at interior, right? Easy
Yeah.
enough, but the other
If you stay
permitted.
at the same footprint, even if you change where a door is, so you could have an addition go out somewhere down the line. I think if you stay with the same footprint, mess around a little bit in the interior, it shouldn't affect a stormwater permit.
No, as long as your roof line's not changing
Right.
Mhm,
and you're not changing anything with the driving and the parking,
mhm,
Right.
yeah,
mhm.
it should be fine.
Chris, I want to come back to Eric's presentation. I don't remember talking much about marine basin
Maintenance.
maintenance.
No, we didn't. That really
Oh,
wasn't necessarily under Eric's realm,
Right.
but I just,
Put that in there.
all together. I just had that as a reference that, to just acknowledge it, but for a moment that, that's still up in the air as to how the Bald Head Island Marina Basin long-term maintenance is going to be managed. Whether it's, because we know that the developer had thought that the village was going to be putting in 20% or whatever.
Mhm.
That did not come to be. And between the village, the developer, transportation, the yacht club,
Mhm.
the Marine Association, how is that going to eventually play out? So that was.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that being there. I guess my question is, who needs to be driving the stake in the ground to get that decided?
I think maybe the mayor could speak to it as we are
Yeah,
a member of
so,
the Marina
Yeah,
Harbor.
I don't know how much you're aware of, but at the meeting, all of a sudden, Chad announced that we were responsible for a certain percentage. And
Which
we,
meeting?
it was
Is it recent?
see, it was a yacht.
the Marina Association
Yeah.
that we want.
Right.
So hey, this has to be done, it needs to be dredged, and this is how the, money how it gets paid for. And in his conversations, and the village has to pay for, was it 20%?
1%.
Yeah, but whatever it was,
Yeah.
It was big. And
It was big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but whatever it was, we're like, we don't ever remember agreeing to that. And
I remember this.
the response was, Chad, show us where we agreed to that, and if we did, great.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, sure.
we never heard from him again. So, I mean, right now, I think, from our perspective and budget wise, somebody's gonna be paying for this eventually, and I'd like to have something in the budget because I know it's gotta happen. And if we do get settled with it, or settled with part of it, we,
Yeah, so the developer transportation went ahead and funded the surveying work to see what the basin really looks like, to then determine what's going to be a projected cost to clean it out. And I'd probably be nice to find out if the surveying, Chad moved on that and they hired someone, they did that.
that, and I thought they were doing work on prepping for the permitting for the spoil site too.
That too.
Right.
Yeah, because there's some work
Let me
that's gonna be
call-
needed. There's some work that's gonna be needed at the spoils basin, because the erosion has taken some of that on the northwest abutting the creek over the years.
Filled into the creek,
Yeah, the erosion has,
washed into the creek,
right.
blocked the creek exit.
Let me call Henson on that because he is essentially the president of the association too, isn't he? Yeah, okay.
So here's where I'm trying to go with this. So somebody needs to be establishing the long range vision for how this stuff's going to be handled, right? Who should be driving that train? Should not be. And I don't.
I think it's a form and function of the Marina Association, right,
Right.
Charles?
I've got some thoughts in that we'll talk about.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
But one day we're gonna wake up, it's gonna need to be done.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It
always-
doesn't already need
Yeah,
to be
it's gonna
done.
need to be done.
Yeah.
And but we're handling the marine channel, right?
Yes.
And we still are.
Yeah.
That has,
That's our
That was
part.
of the,
That's kind of our part of the whole,
Yeah.
to me.
yeah.
and that was part of our argument of
That's
why not
that's part of the
20%.
argument. So
Yeah.
everybody's aware of that. It's
Okay.
just a question right now, when you're saying who's driving it, it's the association, which is the group of us, and Steve Henson's in charge.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
The mayor.
Chris, do you need anything else on the Green Victoria update? I mean, it's pretty clear we're gonna utilize them to help us with the, whatever they can help us with on frying pan, Shoals Bar site.
Yeah, I think there's a whole list of things. I just need some time to get that down on paper, have the mayor, Jay, we work through that. As well as that, and work with Monica and Steve on that, and try to put a plan together that moving forward, because we are paying them.
Right.
And
And I do think once we do get that together, I think we should go to Washington.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about how that would happen, but I think that, I made contact once now, and I think going back again.
Right.
Maybe it's me and
Somebody.
somebody,
what I'm envisioning too is a federal side and a state side.
right,
Let's wrote that down.
yeah,
Because some of those things need to be handled at the state level.
Right.
Some of them need to be handled at
Right.
the federal level, and some of them need to be handled both.
Tandem.
Fisheries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's,
Okay.
a little time building that little spreadsheet or.
you want to go into that, right? Because that's another, well, that's not a budget item, we're just talking about
We're trying
priorities
to
in
get him
general.
something to,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think for the Conservancy, there's probably not any contention there about what we would,
Yeah.
they'll present their stuff.
Chris, how did it happen that the island voted against contraceptives for deer, but the village went ahead and funded it anyway? And I know, I just don't have the history.
Okay, well, the big picture, there is an ideology indifference as to how deer should be managed on the island. Between shooting them, e-calling, and something people felt it was a little more humane.
Okay. And I get that,
Contraception.
but since we had, the question is really, since we had a vote, how did the council end up saying, well, forget the vote? Just really-
Oh, you're talking about the survey?
I thought it
The Bald
was,
Island survey?
I was it a survey? I thought,
Association did the survey, right? The council voted against them with the members.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think,
do we have another survey? See what the islanders say to influence our decision.
I don't, I get the whole debate. I had, and I wasn't involved. This is some years ago. So I just was curious about the genesis and the history. So it surveys are limited value because, like even the master plan, 200 people don't really represent everybody's point of view. And everybody has different, there's strongly held views on whether or not we should be putting earrings on deer. So I don't know if we want to open that Pandora's box. I just
Curious.
Yeah.
So
We don't have-
perhaps we need to remember what Jerry said yesterday is that we don't want to have a few loud be driving the train if it doesn't make sense. And I think that we had a lot of loud, few loud, very loud.
Now, did we leave it the other day that Beth was waiting to hear from us about an approach to the deer?
I think she's gonna help me remember this, but isn't she gonna go ahead and she's got to do a permit thing and she was gonna do a 5-year. It doesn't mean we have to pay for anything, but she would have the permission to
Right.
do that.
she's gonna move forward to try to get the operational permit
Right,
versus the previous research permit.
right.
So that in the instance the number goes up above 200, that we have it in hand to be able to
Just say
budget
yes or no.
for it.
Got it. Right, but she's not asking us to budget anything right now.
No, other than maybe
Maybe
funds to do
associated.
the permitting,
Okay.
which is fairly minor.
Yeah.
was she asking for the living shoreline?
Just in concept of the program and probably location.
But not money for it.
No, I mean, hopefully they can work with the state and other sources for grant funds to fund that ideally. It's a big hot environmental topic for maintaining creek shorelines that amongst the environmentalists. And so I would think there's plenty of opportunities out there to get funds.
I would think so.
You jumped to Duke.
They're not a budget
I
thing.
mean, it's,
Nothing there that we have to pay for.
no, I think it'd be great though when, when you plan that, review of the site, the island in general,
The wrap up.
the wrap up. Schedule that and I think, going every place where there's been trucks and, and what kind of damage has been done and just assess what it is. See how much they're going to support getting it fixed. Well, part of that, when you go down to the parking for the new handicap beach access, that parking lot that we have that needs work, it needs work now, but it's also adjacent to a spoil site that Duke was using. I think that's something that is a priority before the season starts.
Definitely, and I think JP is fully aware of that to make that happen. The question I think I have is direction on any sort of expansion of the existing parking area into that land that was used as spoil site. If the village owns that whole corner. And and maybe sort of interim is just getting the existing parking lot
Cleaned up.
cleaned up this year. And then look at maybe designing improvements for the following year to include possibly a restroom if based on the master plan, you know, that's a
Right.
sort of a middle island location.
It's a
for it.
good separation to any residential too, as kind of a island in the roads.
Right.
It's, this is aside, the new handicap access looks great. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very well done. But I think a lot of moms and babies and strollers will like it too. So I think that will be much used access.
And for my clarity, when we talk about restrooms, we're not talking about full-blown bath houses where you have showers and
No,
we're talking just
Please.
a place to use the restroom.
And wash your hand.
wash your hands, change a diaper.
Yep.
That's an add-on. Wash your hands.
Jeez, Jerry.
Once a week. Has to be
Whether you
done.
need to or not.
Yeah. Okay, so we're all set with Duke as well then. Long range planning, I think that's taking care of itself kind of right now, except for the list of new studies that we would want to do and work with Monica and Steve to try and get funding for.
Now, I would recognize on the Greenway Master Plan that Cole, Stones and Ness did a pedestrian bicycle access plan back in 2013. So I don't think, and Brian's done a lot of work over the years and I think he might have lost that one.
Yeah, I mean, every time you say that, he looks at you so surprised.
Right.
And then,
I'm
oh,
like,
look at that. And it's
I'll
like,
send
they
you
never
a
does.
copy of it.
Yeah.
But I'll just say, I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel completely.
No, no.
But when, on the long range planning, if we're talking about budgeting, to get that thing going, even though we're not gonna start these things, we're talking about rewriting ordinances, rewriting code.
Right.
We need to put any legal money in there, or we do that ourselves to do that.
He's gonna do that. We put that in earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, we have, you know, Cole Stones and Ness, who's done the master plan, who's also done UDOs to do the UDO, complete it, but a part of that would be some legal review. Charles and Will looking through it, and so there'd be some,
But you got it covered.
yeah.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Managed forum, I think that's,
That's its own thing. That's not a budget item.
It's not a budget. Yep.
no. Okay, we already talked,
Like utility.
yeah, we talked about JP.
So, Chris and department heads, it would be helpful to me as we consider budget items. In part of each budget item presentation, what it's gonna cost. What's the cost benefit analysis? I mean, what's the potential savings we're gonna see and how does that net out? I mean, you tell us that, but sometimes we don't see it in writing and it would be nice to have that. As you present these particular budget items. And I mean, if I'm the only one.
It's a lot like with assignment.
That's the same
When
thing.
you said it'll pay for itself in X years.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
some things won't. Right,
And some things
but they're
won't.
necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
And some things may be guesstimates,
Right.
Get
and
it.
that's okay.
Get it, but it certainly helps to know, well, this is a nice ad that's not gonna cost us any money.
Right.
It's gonna actually save us money. Then we put that into this thing that really is gonna cost us but we need to do it, right? That's.
That is the way it's usually
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just budget items, right? Not what
Yep.
we should be working on next year.
No, this,
So can I throw one out that we might be a budget item, unless we say we don't want to work on it this year? We only talked about it on the side. We never talked about it in this meeting. Do we want any type of study going on in terms of the ICE vehicles versus electrical vehicles versus the halogen highlights that blind you when you drive through them? Anything to do with what we kick around every now and then? Is there any money that needs to be put in the budget to study addressing some of these issues?
I'd say in the past, with some of these like transportation safety related issues, there was a committee that island residents that came together and they discussed it and some point came up with some recommendations to the council on how to try to resolve those. I mean, the halogen lights was included in work done by the Transportation Committee, although it sort of got pushed to the side because the ICE ordinance piece got so overwhelming and at times probably bogged down. I mean, that was almost a 2-year process to
And I think you said that was done 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's not a budget item if we felt like that's something the island should look into. It's a freebie, but we have to do something about it, forming a committee, giving them direction, let them do the work, but it's not a budget item.
Right.
Is that true?
I think so. I wonder, so I think it needs to be done, but I just wonder whether it needs to be done in a different order. I mean, if we're doing a transportation study, theoretically, you get done with the transportation authority study and you have a whole series of identified problems. And then you're looking for the solution to the problems. And the things you're talking about are going to be some of the solutions. And so there's almost meat to say why we have to.
Yeah, so you're right. So that wouldn't go ahead of time, but it should go on the list of things in the interview process with those traffic companies. It should go on the list of things that we'd like for them to make sure they look
They're
at, plus
covered.
anything else they should look
Right.
at. Maybe that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's,
And I mean, you all have that pleasure to, if that's the way the route you'd like to go. That sounds reasonable and I think it's a good route.
We've also talked about doing some work to clean up how some of our ordinances work together with the ordinances or the rules and regulations of the association and to try to bring that together. Is that a legal process that's should be in the budget?
That would be a part of the UDO process.
Right.
In my mind.
it would be, yeah, rewriting.
That's why.
And we just talked about needing some legal fees tied to that.
Right.
Right.
So finance, I don't know if that, I think have we funded, I mean, we've already approved
The new person
a new person
and the market,
and the,
make up the model,
and the what?
making up the model.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, yep.
Uh,
And the accommodation software we've approved, right?
To remind you on that new position that I'd say probably Jack and I were talking about at the time we put it out, we interview, hire March, April, maybe May. We hopefully will be able to fund that through this rest of this fiscal year, but that'll be a new budgeted FTE.
Right, that's what I mean. But I mean, I think we've already kind of agreed
Yeah.
to all of
Right.
his questions.
And then it's the same question for public safety. I don't know if Ellen, we, everything that you're thinking of is either in the budget or not only to do it, but to start ramping it up for the following year to be done. I mean, I don't know where we stand on your budget.
Pretty much everything that I've been talking about is gonna cost money.
That's shocking.
That's why we're here.
I think the big thing is the storage building. And we did get a price on that.
I'm sorry, this is the one.
The storage building.
Building out the back, did get a price on that, and that's something that might be a separate budget item. Everything else is something that when we go through the process with Chris and Zach, a lot of things probably will get whittled down. Not in as grand fashion as we'd like them, maybe scaling back on a few things, but that's a direction we'll probably head.
Okay, so I guess my question is, if you've got 10 thoughts of what you might want to look at the end of the day, you're going to whittle it down to 2. Maybe look, I'm making these numbers up. So if you want to look at 2, we don't want to say, you're not allowed to look at 2 because we didn't budget 2. So now this is the time we're talking about the budget something.
Right. But I think what, at least my reading of what you presented is, like, well, that's great. We need these, we're gonna be replacing trucks and vehicles, et cetera. It's like, I can't do that until I have somewhere to put my stuff that's in the way.
Right.
And so the building is, that's a need now or immediately. And then, and the vehicles are too.
A lot of capital.
So I think what we're saying, because they will come to us with what they want, and then we're gonna
Right.
say, they're gonna whittle it down because Chris, they can't do that. Or Zach will say that, and then we're gonna look at it and say, well, we can't do that. Let's put that money somewhere else. But I think maybe what we should encourage, yes, go put money in for the storage shed so we can take a look at that.
That and to answer you're right, but some of these things might take $20,000 or $30,000 to do the analysis to get the answer. We should be budgeting $20,000, $30,000. As an example, like when the IT thing, the CRM stuff. He's going to spend $50,000 just to get an answer what to do, even before day one starts. So a lot of these things take money just to figure out the answer.
Right. I don't think we're gonna be there for much for you, but.
But it was just an example of what I'm talking about.
I don't, I would throw that out. I don't know whether that fits into any of their bills at all. Monica and Steve, the CRM. I would throw it at them, let them say, no, we can't. Nice, but we're not gonna ever be able to find funding for that. Let them tell us that. Okay. More?
On. Well, human resources, certainly I think the pay study and equalization is top priority. If the study says we're underpaying people, we need to fix that,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
That
Well, she'll be, no,
need to fix that.
But we should have that information so we can budget salary increases.
Absolutely.
wait,
That's what I'm-
she'll have that.
So we have a preliminary, if we do what we've done historically at 60%. Then keeping us at the 60% level, then it's a like 5.1% increase, but not everyone's impacted. So that the first part of it is they do the classification, our positions classified correctly. And then they plug in the individuals to see where the new rates came and are they being paid comparably for their grade. So, and last time we did the study, it is probably about double this time what we're looking at, but we improved it. We approved it last time in February, I believe, right, Chris?
Actually, I think it was December
Well, but I don't think
2018.
we finished in right, we finished up, but we didn't present it and it wasn't approved until February.
Oh, okay.
And the salary increases were approved for at that time.
Yes.
Right, and we
Yes.
did it the first full pay cycle after that. Well, we wouldn't be doing till March, so this year, it would be not that whole amount, right, that we would be budgeting for. So if you approve it, and if you approve the salary increases, or it would be like the March 24. So you're talking about like 8 pay cycles versus for this year.
Gotcha. But it's a number we can fit into a budget.
Right.
So
Right,
that's good.
once we get the final figures, we will have that happen, for the budget process.
Perfect.
And so I guess the other thing you were asking us would be to look at a 2% COLA and consideration of a 5% merit, which is different than we've done before. So that would be
I think we're at 2% and 4%.
percent.
Well, I said 5.
No, I'm saying right now though, we're at 2 and 4.
We're at 3 and 3.
3 and 3. Okay.
So this would be 2 and 5. So
Right.
So a net of one.
And then the 401K.
Oh, right. And we want to
The
see
money
that.
was
too.
allocated. So, and we haven't obviously used any of that, so what do we want? Do we want to use those funds to do something with?
Okay, so that would be something we,
So that would be a budgeted item,
Mhm.
and then there's a new position for HR being recommended.
Okay.
And when we switch to opening on Saturday again, we're not handling it by overtime,
Well, right now, we're open.
right?
And because of the employee that we hired who worked a day and quit,
The ghost.
yes,
So we have an opening.
we do.
Okay.
And Jay and them have put out and are actively recruiting for it, but in the meantime, like you said, we're not gonna close. And so we're managing it with the 4 and with minimal or with overlapping schedules. Because we are pretty slow right now.
But that feeds into that we should potentially look at this locker situation
Mhm.
because of these very personnel
Mhm.
issues, if that would help at all with some of that. Does Karen want money?
We also, so there is coming up in June, is that when appointments are made? So we were talking about the TA and just,
Yeah.
so at one point, Scott was trying to generate a name that we want representing us and want to talk to that a little bit, because I think that, that you were doing it and then we all kind of got busy doing other stuff. And I think it's really a priority item. It's not a budget item.
Right.
Back in.
Well, I was gonna suggest, Mayor, if we include this part of the retreat agenda, because we're almost getting to 12:30, that we want to try to break before we get back together at 1:30, so folks can grab something to eat.
Yeah, why don't we do
If
that?
you wanted to have.
Yeah,
that
because I mean, we
discussion.
should like focus on anything we need to tell you that we want to see in the budget or don't want to see in the budget or whatever, right? That's kind of what we're
But
doing now.
I think to Peter's point, the help we're gonna need on the appointments matter is gonna require some help from some NC lobbyists,
Right.
right? And
Oh, so-
Charles is firm, Drew Moritz is on the Republican side, Ed Trunk is on the Democratic side. They're both very well connected, both very effective. We might need to engage their help.
So we might be thinking about that.
Put a little money in the
Gotcha,
budget for legal
gotcha.
lobby help. Just like we're doing with DT on the federal side.
Right. Okay.
Time for
Can I
break?
get a motion to recess for? No, we're
Or do
gonna
we adjourn?
adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Uh,
Okay.
Back
See you
at
at
1:30.